The next bill on the calendar for the day is House File 3103. The clerk will report the bill.
House File number 3103, number 3 on the calendar for the day, an act relating to human rights, the first engrossment.
There are no amendments at the desk. The clerk will give the bill its third reading.
Third reading, House File number 3103.
Third reading. I call upon the member from Ramsey, the author of the bill, Representative Moran.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speakers and members, House File 3103, also known as the Crown Bill, which means creating a respectful and open world for natural hair, was launched as an effort to change societal biases and discrimination against African American women and men, natural textures, and hairstyles. According to the Crown Research Study completed in 2009 by the Joy Collective, African American women are 80% more likely to change their natural hair to meet the Eurocentric standards of appearance, social norms, or expectations at work. African American women are 50% more likely to be sent home or know of an African American woman sent home from the workplace because of her hair. African American women are 30% more likely to receive a formal grooming policy in the workplace. The Crown Coalition was co-founded by the Dove, the National Urban League, Color of Change, and the Western Center on Law and Poverty, and is supported by over 50 other NGOs and nonprofits. In July of 2019, the Crown Act was signed into law in both California and New York. New Jersey came the third state to make the Crown Act law in December of 2019. It also has been introduced in Congress, in the House, and in the Senate. Locally, the Urban League Twin Cities, the Council for Minnesotans of African Heritage, and the City of St. Paul African American History Month Committee are all supportive of this bill. As the National Urban League is a co-founder of this coalition, this is a priority bill for the Twin Cities chapter. Language from this bill was drafted off the model in New York legislature and expands the definition of the term race in the Minnesota Human Rights Act as the follow. Race means inclusive of race, including but not limited to hair textures, hairstyles, such as braids, locks, and twists. And I know many of you may think, like, in the 21st century, do this really exist? Are people discriminated? Are African Americans discriminated because of their hair in our schools, in the workplace? And I would say to you, yes. The day before I was to introduce the Crown Bill in my first committee, I received an email from a mother, and I would like to share that email with you now. She said, "I want to write to say thank you for introducing this legislation. As a mother of a mixed-race children, I have seen them struggle with teachers and school officials making inappropriate comments about their hair. Also, my husband has been asked to shave his dreadlocks in order to be hired for a position on several occasions. This year at the Youth in Government, my daughter drafted a false bill to end the discrimination of natural hair, and she presented it to her cohorts. It was really astounding how many people were surprised that hair discrimination happens, and many kids were against her bill because it didn't impact them. When I showed her the story that you had introduced the Crown Bill, the Crown Act here in Minnesota, she started crying because this was so personal to her. We don't live in your district, but we were wondering how we can help to get this passed. Also, my daughter would love the opportunity to meet you in person and say thank you. And so this came in an email to me the day before the bill was heard for the first time. I immediately responded to her and told her, you know, how sorry I was that her daughter had continuously been teased and taunted in school, and no one was there to defend her or to make sure it didn't happen again. And I also said to her, you know, and it was a school day, and I said to her, the best way that you can be helpful and your daughter can be helpful and be seen and be heard is to testify. And her mother immediately wrote back and said, thank you. We will be there. In that first hearing, her daughter testified in support of this bill. She was brave, she was articulate, she was beautiful, and I was excited to have her there to meet her, a courageous young girl who wants to make a difference for herself and so many other young girls. Members, I stand in questions. Do you have any questions in regards to this bill? And hope that I can get your support of House File 3103. Thank you.
Representative Richardson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, I'd like to thank Representative Moran for bringing this very important bill forward. Blocking people with natural hairstyles from a desk in a classroom, from a high school wrestling match, or from attending their own high school graduation is discrimination. Denying people access to economic security or advancement, not because of the quality of their work, but for the natural characteristics of their hair, is discrimination. It is sad commentary in 2020 that this and other forms of discrimination persist in Minnesota and around the U.S. And as long as discrimination exists, how can we say equality exists? How can we say equity exists? The viral stories we've seen on social media continue to shine a light on just how far we need to go to end discrimination. This legislation makes sense, and it's long overdue. It's an important step forward for equality in our schools and equality in our workplaces. While legislation may not change hearts and it may not change minds, it will give individuals that experience this form of discrimination a recourse, an opportunity to be heard, an opportunity to be validated, and an opportunity to be vindicated. And on behalf of all the Black, Indigenous, and people of color that have been subjected to this form of discrimination and unfair treatment, I'm proud to vote yes on this bill and encourage other members to join me in voting yes as well. Thank you.
The member from Hennepin, Representative Hassan.
Good morning, Madam Speaker and members, or good afternoon. Today I speak in favor of House File 3103, also known as the Crown Act bill. I first want to thank Representative Rena Moran for her commitment to social justice and her courage to lead unpopular and sometimes difficult conversations. For everyone to understand why we're talking about Black natural hair and hairstyles, we must comprehend the connection between Black hair and Black identity. A Senegalese historian named Sheikh Anta Doueb explains it perfectly. For us Black people, our hair is an expression of the infinite possibilities that emanate from this creative and daring conciseness. Historically, Black body and Black hair has been policed and expected to be altered to fit into the perception of Eurocentric standards of beauty. According to research, the policing of Black hair dates back to slavery times. It was reported that slave owners' wives would chop off Black women's hair so they aren't deemed attractive by their husbands. Black women spend tons of money to buy hair products and chemicals to change their natural hair in order to resemble mainstream hair. And those who define the social norm and social contract get penalized by getting fired from their jobs, or passing promotion to someone else who's deemed more attractive. Let's ponder over this for a minute. If hair is tied to success and beauty, and Black natural hair and hairstyles are considered untamed, unkept, and wild, then how does Black women who wear their hair naturally climb the ladder of success? I would like to emphasize one key point here, which is the haunting effect that policing Black hair has on children's self-esteem and self-worth. We noted that Black hair is tied to Black identity. So what happens when we convince little girls there are parts of their identity they should be ashamed of or change? We do this by relaxing, straightening, and altering their hair so it fits perfectly in society's perception of what a beautiful hair looks like. This means we're teaching kids to change as others want to accept them as who they are. This perception leaves negative impact psychologically, and it scars these children forever. No child should ever learn that their identity has hole in it, and they should spend the rest of their lives filling that void with something else. As a responsible and just society, we should teach kids to embrace who they are and that they're enough to wear their natural hair. In the words of Maya Angelou, phenomenal woman, we should raise phenomenal young ladies who are confident, courageous, purposeful, and daring. Therefore, this issue is personally important to me, as I want to be sure that my 6-month-old daughter, Samara, grows up in a world that values her as a whole self. I want her to wear her curly hair, natural hair, and style the way she wishes. I want her to know that she's more than enough. We need to change this policy for my daughter and for all the little Black girls to never learn to worry about altering a part of their identity. We also need to combat the negative perception associated with Black natural hair and hairstyles, but that's for another day. I humbly ask you to support the social justice quest, and thank you very much.
Representative Lucero.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I have a question for the bill author, if she's willing to yield.
She will yield. Representative Lucero.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you, Chair Moran. Can you confirm that other protected classes in Minnesota, in addition to race, also include creed and national origin?
Representative Moran.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Representative Lucero, can you please repeat the question?
Representative Lucero.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Chair Moran, can you please confirm that other protected classes in the state of Minnesota, in addition to race, include creed and national origin?
Representative Moran.
Madam Speaker and Representative Lucero, so the one thing that we know, and also the Department of Human Rights knows, is that race encompasses many different characteristics. Many different characteristics makes up a race. And what we're doing with this bill here, and specifically looking at hair, is because within the Department of Human Rights, there have been cases, many cases that has been brought to them in regards of racial biases, racial discrimination. And so we are not defining race here. We're just saying, I'm just saying to you and to us and to the state that race is inclusive of hair textures, including braids, twists, and locks, because that is where we are seeing the most discrimination in this state around race. So it makes it inclusive of. It's not defining race.
Representative Lucero.
Would the bill author continue to yield?
She will yield. Representative Lucero.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and Chair Moran. Can you please confirm that other protected classes in Minnesota, in addition to race, also include creed and national origin?
Representative Moran.
Madam Speaker and Representative Lucero. Representative Lucero, I believe in the state of Minnesota that we do not accept discrimination in any form, and we should not.
Representative Lucero.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Would the bill author continue to yield?
Yes.
She will. Representative Lucero.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you, Chair Moran. Chair Moran, can you please confirm that the statutory definition of protected classes in Minnesota, in addition to race, include creed and national origin?
Representative Moran.
Yes, Madam Speaker and Representative Lucero. Yes, I believe it does. I haven't looked it up at this moment, but we can both look it up. I'm sure there's a definition that's out there for us. But I believe the answer to your question is yes.
Representative Lucero.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and if the bill author would continue to yield.
Yes.
She will. Representative Lucero.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you, Chair Moran. And when I'm looking at the bill language before us here, it says race specifically. It's calling out or singling out race among the other protected classes in Minnesota. It's singling out race to add this definition to, and not creed and national origin. Can you specify why you have selected race as an additional definition to add to and not creed, for example? Why can a person or an employer or whoever it might be, the perpetrator, discriminate against creed, or let me ask it this way. Why did you choose race instead of creed or national origin to extend the definition to?
Representative Moran.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Representative Lucero. You know what I found interesting, Representative Lucero, is that in the state of Minnesota, we do not have a definition for race, nor did we want to define what race is, because race is encompassed of many different characteristics, including creed. And so I'm not here trying to define what it is for you or anyone else, because there's many, many, many different characteristics that makes up a race. I am just including in definition that race is inclusive of your hair textures and styles, including locks, braids, and twists.
Representative Lucero.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and if she would continue to yield.
She will. Representative Lucero.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you, Chair Moran. And part of the concern for me is the subjectivity of, as you just described, there isn't a definition for race. And so I'm putting myself in the position of an employer. And I am to make decisions, and the way that I make decisions in terms of policies for my employees is best done with an objective definition and an objective standard. And when I'm looking at the bill language here, it says the race is inclusive of traits associated with race, including but not limited to hair texture. So I know the focus of the conversation, as we heard this in committee, and now as it's been presented on the House floor, is hair texture. But you're saying including but not limited to. So what are some of the other traits that are associated with race that an employer needs to be cognizant of in this, what appears to be a very subjective standard?
Representative Moran.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Representative Lucero. So the definition is this. A race is a grouping of humans based on shared physical or social qualities into categories generally viewed as distinct by society. Society has defined that. The term was first used to reference to speakers of a common language and then to denote national affiliation. By the 17th century, the term became referred to physical traits. So that's the definition that we have for the word race.
Representative Lucero.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And if the bill author would yield for another question, again, what are some of the other traits, because the language says not limited to, what are some of the other traits above and beyond hair that you are suggesting that an employer or others would not be able to make decisions that potentially have an impact on policies?
Representative Moran.
So let me give you some categories as to how we as a country and a world define race. We have American Indians, Alaska Natives, Asians, Black, African Americans, Native Hawaiians, other Pacific Islanders, white. So the difference between race and ethnicity is this. Race is understood by most people as a mixture of physical behavior and cultural attributes. That is where we are with the definitions. And I think, Representative Lucero, that, well, maybe not, that those are the definitions of race, Representative Lucero. That has been decided from, it goes back to the 1700s, right? And it's usually is the physical appearance of how we denote what race is of a person, of an individual.
Representative Lucero.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Again, I didn't hear an answer there to my question is, what are the additional traits? So you just read a definition of race, and you're associating hair as one of the traits associated with a race. What are the additional traits that are included but not limited to per the language that you have before us? The additional traits beyond hair that an employer might be in violation of if that trait is associated with a race. What are some additional traits that I'm looking for? Above here, is it clothes? Is it tattoos? Is it ear piercings? What are the additional traits that you are intending per the bill language before us?
I would say other traits could be religion. I say other traits can be whether you're LGBTQ, other traits of discriminations that we have found around, race. But the Census Bureau defines race as a person's self-identification of one's or more social group. An individual can report as, this is how, I'm sorry, Representative Lucero, but, this is the definition of race. We can't change it. I'm just saying it's also inclusive of hair. But this is the standard national definition. It is defined race as a person's self-identification with one or more social groups. An individual can report as white, Black, African, African American, Asian, American Indian, Alaskan Natives. What this bill simply does is says that race is also inclusive of your hair, one's hair, one's texture. It defines it. It extends the norm, what we have currently in statute, to hair.
Representative Lucero.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I did not, okay, so what I'm asking for additional traits, the answer I just got is that religion is an additional trait associated with race, per what the bill author just said. That sexual orientation, she mentioned LGBTQ as an additional trait that can be associated with race. I guess I've never heard of those being associated with races. Religion is not associated with a particular race, nor is sexual orientation. So I do not understand the answer. But she raises another point that I hadn't thought of, which is self-identification. I'm looking for an objective definition, and she said that the definition of race can be how one self-identifies. That's completely subjective. And so how is an employer that potentially has a policy in place in the workplace, and now that if this bill were to become law, that employer would now suddenly potentially be in violation because of the way that somebody self-identified, purely subjective and not objective. And the other concerns that I would have, and I won't continue to ask the member to yield, but we clearly haven't seen, or she has not articulated, additional examples of traits associated with race. And that is a huge concern. I think it puts employers in a position that they may not be able to definitively take steps to ensure that there isn't discrimination, because the definition here becomes very loose, it's very subjective, and an employer cannot make policies with a subjective standard. When I look at twists, you know, and when we heard this bill in the committee, I used to have long hair in the back past my collar. And my sister has had long hair her whole life, and she's had twists and braids. And I guess I've never in my entire life associated with braids with a particular race. Braids, just like religion, hairstyle is a cross-section independent of race. I see it just the exact opposite of what we're trying to do here. Hairstyle can be worn by any person, regardless of their race, religion, marital status, disability status, age, sexual orientation, etc. Hair is not associated with a particular race. And so, members, I have huge concerns with this language because it puts employers in a very bad position. And so I would encourage a no vote. Thank you.
The member from Ramsey, Representative Moeller.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I just wanted to thank Representative Moran for bringing this bill, and also point out that we have a third branch of government, the judicial branch, and a lot of times definitions that aren't given in statute are interpreted by the courts. And it's my understanding that race has been in the the Human Rights Act since 1967, and that there is a whole body of case law that defines the terms that are used in the Act. Thanks again to Chair Moran for bringing this bill, and I'll be gladly voting yes.
Any further discussion to the bill? The member from Sibley, Representative Gruenhagen.
Am I unmuted?
Representative
Thank you,
Gruenhagen,
Madam Chair.
proceed.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. Representative Moran, I know your heart's in the right place, okay? So you and I, we got elected the same year, so we've known each other quite a long time. But the only thing I'd say is that biology and science have advanced greatly in the last several decades. And today, based upon genetics and a number of other factors, we know that we only have one race, the human race, okay? We have different ethnic groups, but ultimately we're one race, the human race, which means that all of us are brothers and sisters. And that means if you go back far enough in your lineage, some people prefer trees, I'll be sitting on one of the branches, Representative Moran, okay? So I think the bill is well, I'm not questioning any intentions on yours, but I just think it's not taking us quite in the wrong direction. That's all I have to say. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Representative Moran, would you like to close?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So thank you, members. And I think the bigger question is not trying to get in, creed and national origin is a protected class, Representative Lucero. It just is. And that's what it is. And the bigger question is not so much of trying to define race, it's about discrimination. This is a bill about discrimination. And Representative Gruenhagen, I know your intents are good. You have good intentions. But the fact is that discrimination is real. Discrimination happens all the time, which is why we have a Department of Human Rights, so that we can validate all human beings. But that is not always the case. There have been numerous cases that have been brought to the Department of Human Rights of people who have been discriminated because of their hairstyle, their hair, natural hair, braids, twists, locks. The letter that I read from that mother who said I have mixed children and her children been teased at home, in school, whereas a teacher stood there and not protected her was not okay. So what this bill simply does, it says discrimination of any kind is not okay, including discrimination of firing someone, creating the policies that doesn't allow a person to participate on a job because of their hair. Race is inclusive of hair textures and styles. That is simply what this bill does. And it's a good bill. And I am really excited that the Democrats was able to bring this bill forward, recognizing that, walking around in a colorblind land saying you don't see color is not okay. Because if you say that, you don't see me. When I step into this body, I know you see my color of my skin. I know that. So it's important that you recognize and validate, and I would say if you have a hard time believing that discrimination is real, that's the case when it's not happening to you. So I just want to thank you all for giving the opportunity to present this bill, talk about this bill, and I hope that I can get your support for this bill. Thank you so much.
The clerk will take the roll on the bill.
Acom.
Acom, aye.
Acom, aye. Albright. Albright, aye. Anderson.
Anderson, no.
Anderson, no. Backer.
Backer, no.
Backer, no. Bonner.
Bonner, aye.
Bonner, aye. Barr. Barr, no. Baker, excused. Becker Finn. Becker Finn, aye. Bennett.
Bennett, aye.
Bennett, aye. Bernardi.
Bernardi, aye.
Bernardi, aye. Bierman.
Bierman, aye.
Bierman, aye. Bow.
Bow, aye.
Bow, aye. Brand.
Brand, yes.
Brand, aye. Cantrell.
Cantrell, aye.
Cantrell, aye. Carlson, A.
Carlson, A, aye.
Carlson, A, aye. Carlson, L.
Carlson, L, aye.
Carlson, L, aye. Christensen.
Christensen, aye.
Christensen, aye. Claflin.
Claflin, aye.
Claflin, aye. Considine.
Considine, aye.
Considine, aye. Daniels.
Daniels, aye.
Daniels, aye. Doubt. Doubt, no. Davids.
Davids, no.
Davids, no. Davney.
Dabney, aye.
Davney, aye. Dean.
Dean, aye.
Dean, aye. Damath.
Damath, aye.
Damath, aye. Detmer. Detmer, aye. Drazkowski.
Druskowski, no.
Drazkowski, no. Eklund.
Eklund, aye.
Eklund, aye. Edelson.
Edelson, yes.
Edelson, aye. Elkins.
Elkins, aye.
Elkins, aye. Erickson.
No. Erickson, no.
Erickson, no. Fabian. Fabian.
Fabian, no.
Fabian, no. Fisher.
Fisher, aye.
Fisher, aye. Franzen.
Franson, no.
Franzen, no. Freiberg.
Freiberg votes yes.
Freiberg, aye. Garofalo.
Garofalo, no.
Garofalo, no. Gomez.
Gomez, aye.
Gomez, aye. Green. Green, no. Grossel.
Grossel, no.
Grossel, no. Gruenhagen.
Gruenhagen, no.
Gruenhagen, no. Gunther.
Gunther, no.
Gunther, no. Haley. Haley.
Haley, no.
Haley, no. Halverson. Halverson, aye. Hamilton.
Hamilton, aye.
Hamilton, aye. Hanson.
Hanson, aye.
Hanson, aye. Hassan.
Hassan, yes.
Hassan, aye. Hausman.
Houseman, aye.
Hausman, aye. Heinrich.
Heinrich, no.
Heinrich, no. Heinzman.
Heinzman, no.
Heinzman, no. Her.
Her, yes.
Aye. Hertos.
Hertos, no.
Hertos, no. Hornstein.
Hornstein, aye.
Hornstein, aye. Howard.
Howard, aye.
Howard, aye. Hewitt.
Hewitt, aye.
Hewitt, aye. Johnson. Johnson, no. Jordan.
Jordan, aye.
Jordan, aye. Jurgens.
Jurgens, aye.
Jurgens, aye. Keel.
Keel, no.
Keel, no. Cleavorn.
Cleavorn, aye.
Cleavorn, aye. Cagle.
Cagle, aye.
Cagle, aye. Katiza Watun.
Katiza Watun, aye.
Katiza Watun, aye. Kosnick.
Kosnick, no.
Kosnick, no. Krisha.
Krisha, no.
Krisha, no. Kunish Podine.
Kunish Podine, aye.
Kunish Podine, aye. Lehman.
Lehman, no.
Lehman, no. Lee.
Lee, aye.
Lee, aye. Lesh.
Lesh, aye.
Lesh, aye. Liebling.
Liebling, aye.
Liebling, aye. Lean.
Lean, aye.
Lean, aye. Lily. Lily, aye. Lippert.
Lippert, aye.
Lippert, aye. Listlegard.
Listlegard, aye.
Listlegard, aye. Long.
Long, aye.
Long, aye. Lucero.
Lucero, no.
Lucero, no. Lewick.
Lewick, no.
Lewick, no. Mahoney.
Mahoney, aye.
Mahoney, aye. Mann.
Man, aye.
Mann, aye. Mariani.
Mariani, yes.
Mariani, aye. Marquardt, excused. Mason.
Mason, aye.
Mason, aye. McDonald.
McDonald, no.
McDonald, no. Mecklen.
Meckland, no.
Mecklen, no. Miller. Miller.
Miller, no.
Miller, no. Moeller.
Moeller, aye.
Moeller, aye. Moran. Moran, aye. Morrison.
Morrison, aye.
Morrison, aye. Munson.
Munson, no.
Munson, no. Murphy.
Murphy, aye.
Murphy, aye. Nash.
Nash, yes.
Nash, aye. Nelson, M.
Nelson M, aye.
Nelson, M, aye. Nelson, N.
Nelson N, aye.
Nelson, N, aye. New. New, aye. Nor.
No, yes.
Nor, aye. Nornis.
Nornis, no.
Nornis, no. Novotny. Novotny, no. O'Driscoll. O'Driscoll, aye. Olson.
Olson, aye.
Olson, aye. O'Neill.
O'Neill, pass.
O'Neill, pass. Pulowski.
Pulowski, aye.
Pulowski, aye. Purcell.
Purcell, aye.
Purcell, aye. Petersburg.
Petersburg, no.
Petersburg, no. Pearson.
Pearson, aye.
Pearson, aye. Pinto.
Pinto, aye.
Pinto, aye. Poppy.
Poppy, aye.
Poppy, aye. Poston.
Poston, aye.
Poston, aye. Pryor. Pryor. Quam.
Quam, no.
Quam, no. Richardson.
Yes.
Richardson, aye. Robbins. Robbins, pass. Runbeck. Runbeck, no. Sandell.
Sandell, aye.
Sandell, aye. Sandsted.
Sandsted, aye.
Sandsted, aye. Sauk.
So, yes.
Sauk, aye. Schumacher.
Schumacher, no.
Schumacher, no. Schultz.
Schultz, aye.
Schultz, aye. Scott.
Scott, aye.
Scott, aye. Stevenson.
Stevenson, aye.
Stevenson, aye. Sundin.
Sundin, aye.
Sundin, aye. Swazinski. Swazinski, no. Tabke.
Tabke, aye.
Tabke, aye. Tice.
Tice, aye.
Tice, aye. Torkelson. Torkelson, no. Erdahl.
Erdahl, aye.
Erdahl, aye. Vang.
Vang, yes.
Vang, aye. Vogel.
Vogel, no.
Vogel, no. Wagenius.
Wagenius, aye.
Wagenius, aye. Waslowick.
Waslowick, aye.
Waslowick, aye. West.
West, aye.
West, aye. Winkler. Winkler, aye. Wolgamott.
Wolgamott, aye.
Wolgamott, aye. Zhang J.
Sean J, aye.
Zhang J, aye. Zhang T.
Young T, aye.
Zhang T, aye. Joachim.
Joachim, aye.
Joachim, aye. Speaker Hortman. Speaker Hortman, aye. O'Neill.
O'Neill, pass.
O'Neill, pass. Pryor.
Aye.
Pryor, aye.
Aye.
Pryor, aye. Robbins. Robbins, aye. Daniels.
Daniels changes from yea to nay.
Daniels changes from aye to nay, to no.
There being 92 ayes and 39 nays, the bill is passed and its title agreed to.